The OnePlus 5T is my new daily driver, and for those of you who follow my channel, you would probably have noticed that I don't really do smartphone reviews unless that smartphone is my daily driver. And the reason for that is actually extremely simple. It's simply the fact that phone companies don't really send me their phones to review, and I don't have the extra cash to just buy phones for reviewing. So to be fully honest, I got the 5T just because I desperately needed a replacement for my dying Xiaomi Mi 5, which was lagging like a little bitch, and the battery life was reduced to like the duration of my dinner. So there's two variants of this phone. There's the 64GB version with 6GB of RAM, and there's the 128GB version with freaking 8GB of RAM. So I personally got the latter version, the 128 variant with 8GB of RAM, and some people may ask, is 8GB of RAM in a mobile smartphone simply too much? Well, from my experience, not entirely. So I consider myself somewhat of a power user, and my average RAM consumption at any one time is about 6GB. So if my phone only had 6GB of RAM, then I would already be redlining it, but then again, that's just me taking RAM for absolutely granted and running like a trillion apps in the background. But then again, with 8GB of RAM, I can multitask heavily without having to worry that much at all about the phone slowing down. So in typical OnePlus fashion, the phone comes with a pre-attached plastic screen protector. It's not your fancy tempered glass kind of screen protector. It does not have an oleophobic coating, so it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, and it is plastic, so it does scratch pretty easily. So not many people are going to be fans of this screen protector, but hey, it comes with the phone at no additional cost. If you don't like it, just rip it off. Another nice thing that OnePlus just throws in the box along with the phone is a soft case. The soft case is a pretty good quality soft case. It adds a ton of grip to the phone. It's very low profile, and it even has raised corners around the edges for extra protection. The phone itself is very nicely built. Gorilla Glass 5 up front, anodized aluminium back. Overall, everything feels very solid. Nothing feels clunky at all on this phone. The design of the phone is probably a bit more on the conservative side of things comparing it to other brands. On the back, you have the camera bump, which sticks out about 1mm from the back of the phone. Dual cameras, more on the dual cameras later. The NFC antenna is located between the two cameras, and on the right edge of the phone you have your dual nano SIM tray along with the power button. The volume rockers are on the left side of the phone, so it's not on the same side as the power button. And above the volume rockers you have the alert slider, which is quite a rare sight on Android phones, and it's something that OnePlus is famous for having. It's got 3 positions, so normal, do not disturb, and silent. The fingerprint sensor is on the back of the phone in a very reachable position, and it works really fast. And on the bottom of the phone you have your bottom firing speaker, USB Type-C port, and it has a headphone jack. So another thing OnePlus is famous for is its dash charge technology. So dash charge is different from Qualcomm quick charge, and they are not cross-compatible, but dash charge works extremely well. Charging it for half an hour brings your phone battery up to 60% from 0. But the quirks of dash charge are you have to use their power brick, the dash charge enabled power brick, along with their proprietary dash charging cable. And switching to this phone, I also had to replace my quick charge 3.0 car charger with the dash car charger, and as far as I know, there is no dash enabled power bank that's out on the market yet. The Snapdragon 835 processor in here, coupled up with the amazing amount of RAM, plus the fact that it's running on Oxygen OS, which is known for being really light and close to stock Android, makes the user experience on the 5T butter smooth. Multitasking is a breeze. Jumping between apps is effortless and often instantaneous. It can also do split screen, but it doesn't work with all apps. One thing that I tend to look out for in phones that I take quite seriously is the camera launch time. You can quick launch the camera by double pressing the power button, and it will launch the camera app and immediately snap a photo. On the 5T, that works pretty quick. Usually when you use Chinese phones, bloatware is an issue, but OnePlus is a Chinese brand that's pretty much on the other end of that stick. I think the phone doesn't come preloaded with enough apps, but then again, it is known to be close to stock Android. But to me, there are a few essential apps that really should have come with the phone, and because they didn't, I did find it somewhat troublesome. A few to name would be the lack of a calendar app, a note-taking app, a QR code scanner app, and a music player. So let's talk about the cameras on this phone. This phone has dual cameras, and both the cameras have the exact same focal length and the exact same f1.7 aperture. So what's different between them is one of them is 16 megapixels and the other is 20 megapixels. One of them is for normal shooting and the other is specifically purposed for low light shooting. But the funny thing is, The higher resolution one is the one purposed for low light shooting. Because generally higher resolution cameras shouldn't perform as well as lower resolution cameras in low light, but then again, that's the case on this phone. I also found out that there is no way to switch between the cameras. Which camera you shoot with is automatically determined by the phone. And I did find that somewhat ironic because despite having a higher resolution camera on your phone, you cannot use it to shoot your normal properly lit scenes. So I wanted to know what's the difference between the normal camera and the low light camera, so I loaded up the camera app and I lit the room using a dimmable LED panel. Then I slowly dimmed down the brightness of the panel until the phone decides it's dark enough to switch to the low light camera, and then I'll be certain that every picture I take then and there is going to be from the low light camera. So I took a photo using the low light camera and then I brought the brightness of the LED panel back up by about 1 to 2% so it switches back to the main camera, and you can clearly see the frame shift a little as it switches cameras. I then took a photo using the main camera, so now I have a comparison. So looking at the metadata, both images were actually shot at the exact same exposure settings, same aperture, same ISO, same shutter speed, but the one taken on the low light camera is clearly brighter. The edges from the low light camera are also somewhat sharper, but judging by the weird chunky artifacts, probably due to noise reduction algorithms, you can somewhat tell that the image has been through some pretty heavy post-processing. All cameras on the 5T do not have optical image stabilization, only EIS, and it does impose a massive crop when you're shooting video, and it does make your camera movement look kind of funny. Bad thing is, as of my latest firmware update, I think there's absolutely no way you can disable EIS in video mode, which I find kind of annoying. But the image quality out of the 5T is very decent, plenty of detail, sharp, decent dynamic range. Low light photos are also pretty acceptable. It also has portrait mode, which is a bit of a hit or miss. Sometimes it looks very natural and believable, but other times it just looks fake. I also noticed that it doesn't blur out the background as much as the other brands of phones. The screen is a 6-inch display, which is really convenient for checking if you're getting ripped off at Subway. It's caught the new trend of smartphones with the 18:9 aspect ratio. It also has an 80% screen to body ratio, which is really quite pretty to look at. But that also means there's no space left on the chins for physical navigation buttons, so all navigation buttons are on screen. The screen panel is also an Ouellette panel, which is really pretty with really stunning contrast and deep blacks. The panel is also apparently capable of displaying the DCI-P3 color gamut. Unfortunately, I do not have any tools to measure and confirm that this screen right here can actually output the full DCI-P3 color gamut, but it would be awesome if it actually did. There are a few fancy features on the 5T that are disabled by default, so you may have to enable some of these features before they start working, and one of them is swiping down on the rear fingerprint sensor to pull down your notification shade, which is really neat. It's a pretty tall display, so I quite like that I don't have to stretch my thumb all the way to the top of the phone to pull down my notifications. But then I just discovered that you can actually swipe down quickly anywhere on the phone and the shade gets pulled down anyway. You can also input gestures on the screen of the phone when the phone is locked to launch certain apps or enable certain functions. My personal favorite is toggling the flashlight on or off. The 5T also has discount Face ID, well, here it's called Face Unlock. Unlike the iPhone X, the 5T only uses the front camera to recognize your face and unlock the phone. If there's one thing I can tell you about it, it's really quick. If I hold it up to my face and press the power button, I miss the lock screen completely. The OS does warn you that it's less secure than using a fingerprint, and it is actually a bit worrying given how fast it actually authenticates. But I did try putting my face on a computer monitor and pointing my phone at it. That didn't work. Maybe if someone made a life-size cardboard cutout on me and pointed my phone at it, it would work. And one thing I noticed about this is any friend, well, I hope that person is your friend, can just pick up your phone, point it at your face, and run off with it unlocked. But it will not work if the screen is off. Face ID, Face Unlock will only work if the screen is on. It does get quite annoying though. Sometimes you just want to look at your lock screen to glance at notifications, and oftentimes it just straight up unlocks your phone because it saw your face. But there is an option to turn off auto unlock, and when that's turned off, you will have to manually trigger the face authentication before the phone unlocks. There's also Face Unlock Assistive Lighting, which will straight up blaze the AMOLED display in your face and burn your eyes out when it thinks it's too dark to see your face. Now, two things I wish the 5T had, and first of them is ingress protection, basically waterproofing. It's not IP certified, so you do have to be a bit more careful with your phone around fluids. And second of them is an IR blaster. Now it's a thing many people can live without, but coming from a phone that had an IR blaster, I do miss it a lot. Despite that, I still think this is a fantastic phone for the money. My bottom line on it is OnePlus is offering in the 5T what other companies are offering at a significantly higher price point, which is part of the reason why I got this phone. It just feels like a paying for something that's not trying to rip you off. So that sums up my review for the OnePlus 5T. Any questions, any comments, just leave them in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.